Welcome, everyone. I am Allan Cecil, and thank you for joining us here today for the second episode of our What the Vuln series. We're excited to have you here with us for this new series where our security experts break down one vulnerability at a time and share how pen testers can find and exploit vulnerabilities. We'd like to provide insights on the relative business impact that an organization might experience. I'm very happy to welcome Lindsay Von Tish. She's one of our own Bishop Fox security experts. She's here to talk about her experience at a recent hacker meetup where she successfully bypassed EDR using LoLBins. Hey, Lindsay, I'm so glad to have you here today. Let's kick it off and just take a minute to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Allan. Hi, I'm Lindsay Von Tish. I've been a consultant pen tester here at Bishop Fox for about 5 months. And outside of work, I've been actively involved in the hacker community since I joined the Dallas Hackers Association about 5 years ago. I also run DCG 214, the Dallas DEF CON group, and I've given a lot of local talks as well as talks at the DEF CON IoT and adversary villages.
Awesome, Lindsay. And before we dive into technical details, I want to hear more about Zero Day All Day. I know you're involved in that. And how did you get involved in that hacker meetup? What is it, and what sort of impact has it had on you?
O Day All Day is a really awesome meetup here in Dallas, Texas. They meet quarterly for hands-on hacking, and they have really cool setups for hardware or exciting lab environments like the one I'll be discussing today. And I found out about O Day All Day on, I think it was through Twitter and through people I knew at Dallas Hackers Association who attended. And I'll be honest, when I first joined, I was incredibly intimidated because this is a rare group that focuses on hands-on exploitation, but I've learned something awesome every time I've gone. This is where I started learning hardware skills. There's always these brilliant, experienced people who are incredibly supportive, and you can ask questions to. And I think it's really rare to see a meetup that focuses on this active hands-on learning. This meetup is local to the Dallas area, but there are definitely similar groups. There are different DEF CON groups, like the one I run across the globe, all of which kind of vary in theme and format, as well as local B-sides and hacker associations.
That sounds really amazing. So let's dive in. Talk to us about EDR, and let's start with what is EDR for those who might not be familiar.
Yeah, EDR stands for Endpoint Detection and Response, and these solutions provide much needed visibility into device activity through automated detection and remediation of malicious activity. They're very popular. They're used for security across industries and organizations. And from an attacker perspective, EDRs provide another obstacle, a challenge to overcome. An attacker who can bypass an EDR protection is more likely to successfully take long-term control of an endpoint and escalate their activity. So this is definitely important for internal pen tests or phishing simulations, assumed breaches where you're trying to run things on monitored machines. And for attackers, getting access to the machine isn't the end goal. They want to establish persistence, that long-term control of an endpoint to further goals by like installing malware or pivoting to other machines. And for a phishing malware perspective, in addition to getting someone to run something malicious, making sure it's not detected or blocked is a very important step for success there. And the real reason I chose to focus on this was because I had such an awesome opportunity at O Day All Day, where they had set up a very thorough lab with about 5 different EDR providers on 10 hosts with real-time monitoring. We even had a real-time SOC, as well as an Elasticsearch solution for us to look at some of the alerts.
That sounds pretty incredible. Now, I know as part of all of that, you ended up messing around with LoLBins. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is and how you used it?
Yes, LoLBins are living off the land binaries. They're Microsoft signed files native to the operating system or downloaded directly from Microsoft. And they're in particular ones with unexpected functionality that attackers can use to carry out malicious activity. And the malicious use of LoLBins can be challenging to detect and block, as system administrators, other users, or even legitimate software, including like Windows Defender, use these tools for legitimate purposes. Um,
So
sorry, go
why
ahead.
are they important for the experiment that you used? Why did you need to use LoLBins methods and techniques?
So my goal for this attack was sort of from a post-exploitation standpoint, download and run a C2 agent. And in this case, the EDR solution would have caught just a normal download and execution. I needed to hide that behavior in a way that it wouldn't catch it and block it.
Okay, so tell us a little bit more about the specific C2 that you ended up using and what a C2 is in this context.
Yeah. So for this attack chain, I use Deimos C2, which is an open source post-exploit command and control tool written in Golang. It features dynamic agent generation, encrypted communications, and different communication methods. And for those not familiar, a C2 agent is on a piece of software on a targeted device that communicates back to the C2 server, allowing an attacker to gain long-term remote control of the target. And I did actually attempt this using other C2s, but Deimos was the only one that I saw success with.
That makes sense. So I know we can't discuss the specific EDR you ended up attacking, but can you share a few general characteristics about the security solution that you managed to bypass?
Yeah, this lab was really cool in that it had the base setup of 5 different industry standard EDR solutions. And the one we'll be talking about is a really ubiquitous EDR solution. It's definitely one of the top 5 most deployed across orgs and industries. It's widely regarded as one of the better EDR solutions, and it definitely is.
It sounds like you had a little bit of fun with it. So why don't we dive right into your attack scenario? It sounds like you have something to show us here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so I've split the attack into 3 steps, sort of the setup, and then the payload download and execution. And I'll talk a little bit about the payload generation for setup. Generating an agent in Deimos is straightforward and allows for a little bit of customization. For this particular agent, I set it to communicate using HTTPS and turned on the optional obfuscation. After downloading the correct agent for the target machine's architecture, which you can see the different options on the screen, I uploaded it to an external HTTP server so that I could download it to the target machine. And then the Windows binary I used to successfully download the payload without detection was configsecuritypolicy.exe. And this executable is actually used to manage settings and configure workloads for Windows Defender. An attacker with user privileges on a machine running Windows 10 or 11 can use this binary to download a remote file using the syntax I have on the screen. The function saves the downloaded file in a randomly named cache folder, uh, but despite being downloaded from a remote HTTP server, the file did not contain the mark of the web. And for those unfamiliar, mark of the web is a security feature that indicates whether or not a file originated from the internet, um, which marks security controls for opening or executing the file. After running this command on the target machine, I copied the downloaded file into my local directory, as shown in the image. The big limitation of this particular technique using this binary is that the location includes a randomly generated file name. An attacker would have to find the downloaded binary before executing it, which would make this attack chain a little bit harder to automate. Um, in other attempts against different EDR solutions, I was able to use certutil.exe to download the file, which is one of the most commonly used LoLBins, and it allows me to download the file directory, or excuse me, download the file directly and save it under any name. But certutil.exe was blocked by this EDR solution, so which is why I use the Windows Defender config security policy executable. And then to download the binary, I used custom shellhost.exe, which in normal use, this executable creates a Windows client kiosk by replacing the default shell Explorer with a custom application. Because custom shell host is meant to be used in kiosk mode, for anybody listening in who's on the defense side, it should be easier to detect because it's less likely to run on normal workstations. It executes Explorer if it's present in the current directory and otherwise opens it normally. An attacker with user privileges on a machine running Windows 10 or 11 can use this binary to run an executable, but the executable must be named explorer.exe. So after downloading the C2 agent and moving it out of the cache folder, naming Explorer, I attempted to execute it using custom shell host. However, the EDR solution blocked my first attempt and deleted the executable. To get more information, I copy the exact same executable out of the cache folder again. And on the second attempt, the agent ran without detection. To determine that this attack would indeed be consistently successful, I downloaded and ran more of the same agent using the same technique over the course of a few hours, and each additional agent was executed successfully. I'm not currently sure why the EDR solution caught the first execution attempt, but none of the subsequent ones. And after running the agent, it was visible in the C2 console. And a little bit of the look from the Demo C2 server. On the screen, we have the basic server view. You can see in the agent path that the file name is indeed named explorer.exe. We have the heartbeat and a little bit more information on the side. And then the Demo C2 server interface also provides a remote terminal and a file browser, as well as other options for communicating with the target machine. And that's about as far as I took the this attack attempt. The rest, I didn't try to escalate from there. Instead, I focused on verifying that this did indeed work and testing similar attempts against other EDR solutions and using different C2 options.
That is pretty fun to play with. I can see that was really enjoyable to toy around with. Okay,
it was so fun.
I bet. Okay, let's talk about why the attack worked and how it could be weaponized. What could you do with this?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the attack worked because I was able to split it up and look at each part where the EDR solution would be able to detect and block what I was doing. And so that started with splitting it into download and execution, and then looking for sneaky ways to do that, which is why I started looking at the LoLBins to prevent detection. I also think because I obfuscated the C2 agent and perhaps used a less commonly known one, it was less likely for the EDR solution to catch the signature or other like known functionality of the C2 agent that I used.
So let me ask you a different question. Since you had some limitations on how much time you could spend, it was obviously just an event. What would you have done differently if you had a little bit more time?
Yeah, for sure. Moving forward, I would like to see if I can automate this successful attack chain for quick use or delivery in a phishing payload. Particularly, I'm really curious to see how I can find the randomly named cache directory automatically without alerting EDR. There are ways to call on the Windows API that saves the file and ask where it is, but doing so in a way that looks legitimate would definitely take some work. I'd also like to continue this research a little bit more against different EDR solutions, and try to see if I can get it to work with different agent implants as well, just to make it a little bit more versatile, I suppose. But I think automating this attack would be a really cool next step.
Is there anything else you'd like to do in the future, or anything you'd like to talk about before we move on to some questions from the audience?
I think that about covers it. This it was a pretty quick demo, but I think the potential of using lesser known C2 agents and those native Windows binaries, I think there's a lot of potential to do a lot of stuff that may not be caught, and that's really exciting to me.
That does sound exciting. All right, so we have a couple of audience questions. First of all, any ideas on why the first custom shell host was blocked, but other attempts flew by any detection mechanisms?
You know, that's something I really want to know the answer to too. And if anybody in our community is listening in and has ideas, please feel free to respond in the comments or reach out. One of the things that I did notice is when I first ran it after it was blocked, I didn't at first notice that that Explorer executable I'd created was deleted. So I ran custom shell host again. And when that ran, it opened Explorer legitimately. I closed it and then moved that same original C2 agent binary that I downloaded back into that folder, ran it again, and it worked without detection. And I'm wondering if that's, I'm wondering if by running it legitimately, that could have caused some sort of like temporary allow list. However, in an attempt to sort of verify that, I did run this multiple times throughout the rest of the day just to make sure that this attack chain would still work. So I'm not sure, but I'm very interested in finding the answer.
That does seem kind of interesting. Okay, can you tell us more about using Deimos versus other solutions like Sliver? Was there any particular reason you picked that one over other tools?
So I'm going to be honest, like I feel like most of the best hacks, I sort of stumbled into this one. I I did this work as a part of a meetup group, and some of my other friends were working with Sliver C2, so I decided to try something different. Um, I think I think some of the differences I've found in my own use that Sliver has more obfuscation capabilities. Um, I'm wondering if my Deimos if part of what caused my Deimos agent to work over attempts with Sliver agents is that Deimos is a little bit lesser known, and maybe there's less signatures, less information about its behaviors um, in different EDR solutions, as well as I had set that agent specifically to communicate over HTTPS to make the traffic look more legitimate. Um, but very power. They're both very powerful, very useful C2 setups, and I'd definitely like to do more research using Sliver as well.
All right, one more audience question. Any thoughts on why certutil was blocked by one EDR solution and not by others?
So certutil, which which I talk about more in the corresponding blog post too, is one of the most commonly used LoLBins. And I think that one was blocked by one of the EDR solutions as because it was probably a part of the default detections for that one, as it maybe wasn't for some of the others. And that is a thing for anybody on a SOC listening in who's like, oh no, they hackers have been sneaking past our EDR solutions. Um, there are definitely a lot of SOCs who set up custom detections for LoLBins. So even if the base setup of the EDR solution isn't detecting and blocking these, those custom rules can definitely can and should be written. But I think it's just in answer to your original question. I think it's just because certutil is much more commonly used as I think probably the first LoLBin anyone tries. Certainly the first one I try.
That makes perfect sense. All right, any closing thoughts before we sign off for the day?
Um, update your EDR rules if you haven't already. Please check out the blog post for more information. And thank you so much for having me. This has been just a really fun series of experiments, and I'm so excited that I got to share it here on What the Vuln today.
Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great. You're so fantastic going into these details of how you tinkered with this and got it working. It's really great having you as our second guest on the series. To check out more from Lindsay about EDR bypass with LoLBins, visit the bishopfox.com blog and let us know what you think about this session in the comments, and be sure to visit bishopfox.com in general to see more on our What the Vuln series. Thanks, folks, and see you again next time.